All right. So let us start with your chapter number 6, that is input tax credit. Now, as far as importance is concerned, this particular chapter is the most important chapter in GST. It is the most important chapter as far as exam marks is concerned. Also, the most of the questions will come from this chapter only. And as far as your practical life is concerned, maybe in your articleship or once you become chartered accountant, this chapter is very, very important to you. First, there are certain definitions which they have given. Let us not go into those definitions. Let us directly jump into the section. Okay, so which section are we talking about? We are talking about section 16. Now we will understand every word of this particular section. We will take enough time to understand this because very, very important. First, section 16, what does it say? It says eligibility and conditions for taking input tax credit. So the question is, who is eligible to take input tax credit? But before even we talk about who is eligible, first let us again refresh the concept of what exactly is input tax credit and how does it really work. Now, let us say I am a businessman. Okay, I am a businessman and my name is Mr. A. Now, what is the business I'm doing? I am manufacturing. I am manufacturing. So what is that I am manufacturing? Let us say I am manufacturing tiffin box. Okay. So I run a company called as, what is the name of my company? It is Tupperware. Okay. The name of my company is Tupperware and I am manufacturing tiffin boxes. Now, for me to manufacture tiffin boxes, I require some inputs. So when I say inputs, I require materials. So when I say materials, I require raw material. So what is the raw material I require? Let us say I require plastic. Okay, this is one of the raw material which I require. Then there are so many other raw materials also which I may require. Okay, but majorly I require plastic as a raw material. Next, I require some input services, or I will call it as I require some services. So what is the service which I want? Maybe let us say transportation service to get the plastic to my particular shop or my godown. Or I may also receive one more service, that is of renting. Okay, I have rented out my factory premise. So there is one more service which I receive, that is rent. And what is other service I may receive? Let us say I am using internet. I am using mobile phone. I'm using telephone. So I am receiving one more service, that is telephone. One more service, after I manufacture this particular tiffin, I need to sell it to my customers. For this, I require service of marketing agencies. Okay, so I require service of marketing plus advertisement, all these things done. So these are the services which I want. So I want raw materials as well as I want certain services. Along with this, I also want machinery. All right, I also want what? I also want machinery. Why do I want machinery? Machinery to manufacture. Okay, now as commerce students, you know that where will this go? Will it go to profit and loss account or will it go to balance sheet? It will go to your profit and loss account. Now you will say, sir, it will not go to my profit and loss account. It will go to my trading account. At the end of the day, it will go either to trading account or profit and loss account. So simply I'll write it will go to profit and loss account. Revenue expenditure, simple word. These services, where it will go? Where it will go? Will it go to balance sheet? Answer again is no. It will also go to where? Profit and loss account. But where will this machinery go? Where will this machinery go? This will go to where? This will go to my balance sheet. This will go to my balance sheet. Now, why am I classifying this? Why am I teaching accounts in your GST classes? Because this is relevant. This is relevant. Why is this relevant? Because the raw materials in GST are not called as raw materials. This is called as, you need to remember this. This is called as inputs. What are we calling it as? It is inputs. The services what I'm receiving, or normally what I call it as expense, is not called as expense in GST. What do I call it in GST? I call it as input surveys. I call it as what? I call it as input surveys. And machinery, what do I call machinery GST? I will not call it as asset. I will not call it as asset. I will not even call it as capital asset. What will I call it as? I'll call it as capital goods. I'll call it as what? Capital goods. So how do you differentiate between inputs and capital goods? How do you differentiate between inputs and capital goods? If you ask this question, to somebody who is from a science background, he may feel little difficult to understand this. But as a commerce student, it is very simple. If something goes to balance sheet, it is capital goods. If something does not go to balance sheet, it is inputs. Okay. If there is a material, if there is an item which is tangible, and if it goes to balance sheet, it becomes capital goods. And if it does not go to balance sheet, it becomes my inputs. Very simple. Okay. So when you actually look at the definition also, these are the things which is told. We will come to that definitions also slightly later. So this is the first thing what you understood. Okay. Now, let us say, I purchased plastic. Okay. I purchased plastic worth rupees 1 lakh. Okay. So I purchased plastic worth rupees 1 lakh. So this is the value of the plastic. This is the value of the plastic. Along with that, this is the value. And along with that, I also pay GST. Let us say I paid 12% as GST. That is 12,000 rupees. Okay. So next, I also have taken some marketing services. Of, again, let us say 1 lakh rupees, and on which I have paid GST of 18,000 rupees. Of how much? Of 18,000 rupees. Along with that, let us say this month I purchased a machinery. Of, let us say 1 lakh rupees. So why everything is 1 lakh? For the simplicity purpose. Okay, I can give some other amounts as well, but again, calculation becomes very difficult. So machinery also I purchased 1 lakh rupees, but this machinery is taxable at, let's say, 28%. So what is the GST I paid? I paid 28,000 rupees as GST. So remember, I am paying not only this 1 lakh rupees plus this 12,000 I'm paying. So when I'm actually making payment to my supplier, I'm making payment of 1 lakh 12,000 rupees. For marketing, it is 1 lakh 18,000 rupees. For machinery, 1 lakh 28,000 rupees. So these are the payment what I am making. Okay. Now the question is, how should I pass the journal entry? This is the first important question. This is not told in your material, but if you understand this, your GST becomes simple. How do I pass the journal entry? Now, journal entry is when you purchase plastic. What is entry you pass? Let us say purchases account you are debiting. Now, purchases to vendor or to supplier, whoever it is, to supplier. So how much you are supposed to pay to your supplier? It is 1 lakh plus 12,000 rupees, correct? It is how much? It is 1 lakh plus 12,000 rupees. So to supplier, it is 1 lakh 12,000 rupees. But how much are you debiting purchases? Are you debiting 1 lakh 12,000 as your purchases? Answer is no. Okay, answer is no, you're not doing that. Why not? I'll tell you. What are you doing? You're saying purchase is 1 lakh rupees. Purchase is 1 lakh rupees plus GST paid plus GST paid on purchases. GST paid on purchases. How much? 18,000. 18, huh? No, it was not 18,000. It is how much? It was 12,000 rupees. So journal entry is what? Purchases account debited, GST paid on purchases account debited to supplier 1 lakh 12,000 rupees. Okay. Now journal is done. Now the ledger posting comes. Where should it go? Purchases. To which account it will go? It will go to your trading account. All right. So this is going to which account? Your trading account. To supplier. Where it will go? Doesn't matter. It is personal account. It may go to balance sheet. Doesn't matter. Now, GST paid on purchases. This is the question. Where it will go? Should it go to your balance sheet or should it go to your P&L account? Remember, this particular 12,000, whatever you paid, is current asset. Is what? Is current asset. So this will go where? This should go to your balance sheet as 12,000 rupees. It is an asset, not a fixed asset, but a current asset. It is something like you paid something in advance. You paid something in advance. All right. So the same thing. So how much should go to your balance sheet as current asset? 12,000 rupees, 18,000 rupees, and 28,000 rupees. How much it is total? 12 plus 18, 30 plus 28. How much? 58,000 rupees. So total 58,000 rupees is your current asset. Is your what? It is your current asset. Now, what should be the ledger name or what should be the item name? I call it as, this is current asset. Yes. Under current asset, I'll write it as input tax credit 58,000 rupees. So this is what? This is input tax credit of 58,000 rupees. Sir, why is this relevant? I'll tell you. Now, using all this raw material, using these services, using this machinery, I manufacture tiffin box. So henceforth, I will not call it as raw material, services, capital, machinery. I will call it as inputs, input services, capital goods. I prepare tiffin box, and this tiffin box I am selling. Okay. So now let us say I sold tiffin box worth rupees 5 lakh. Okay. So what is the value of the tiffin box? It is 5 lakh rupees. On this, am I supposed to pay GST? Answer is yes. So what is the GST rate? Let us say it is 12%. It is how much? 12%. So what is 12% on 5 lakh rupees? It is 5 lakh into 12% means 60,000 rupees. So when I'm collecting from my customer, how much will I collect? Will I collect 5 lakh rupees or will I collect 5 lakh 60,000 rupees? Answer is I will collect 5 lakh 60,000 rupees. Well, what is a journal entry? Journal entry is important. Okay. So if I'm selling it to my customer, journal entry, I'm going to pass it as buyer's account debited or customer's account debited or debtor's account debited, whatever. I'll keep it simple. I'll say debtor's account debited. How much my debtor is supposed to pay me? 5 lakh 60,000 rupees. Correct. But what is my sales? What is my sales? Two sales. Is it 5 lakh 60 my sale? Answer is no. My sale is not 5 lakh 60. My sale is only 5 lakh. Sir, debit is 5 lakh 60. Credit is 5 lakh. There is no double entry in this. I know. So one more is 2. GST collected. How much is the GST I am collecting? This is 60,000 rupees. GST collected is how much? 60,000 rupees. So we will not talk about where will this go because we know debtor will go to my balance sheet. Sales, I know where it will go to. This will also go to my P&L account. My question is, where should this go? GST collected. What is this? This is commerce students understand. This is current liability. This is what? My current liability. What is my current liability? 60,000 rupees. So what is my current asset? What is my current asset? My current asset is 58,000 rupees. My current asset is 58,000 rupees. And my current liability is how much? Current liability is how much? 60,000 rupees. So I will write in a very together at one place so that you understand it. So on the sale, whatever the GST I collected, that is GST collected is 60,000 rupees and GST paid on purchases I'll also call it as what? Input tax credit is how much? 58,000 rupees is how much? 58,000 rupees. Now I collected 60,000 rupees. I need to pay 60,000 rupees to government, but I will tell the government, wait, see, when I purchased, I already paid this 58,000 rupees as GST. So now I'll pay only balance to you. How much it is? How much it is? It is 2,000 rupees. So how much tax I am paying in cash? I am paying in cash only 2,000 rupees. In cash, I am paying only 2,000 rupees. And by utilizing input tax credit, this is a very interesting word. What is the word I'm using? By utilizing, by using, by deducting my tax, by deducting my input tax credit, I am paying only 2,000 rupees in cash. So by way of input tax credit, how much I am paying? I am paying entire 58,000 rupees. So government will get 60,000 rupees from me. How are they getting it? 58,000 by way of input tax credit and 2,000 by way of cash. So this is the very concept of GST, or this is the very concept or the underlying principle of input tax credit. So if this is this simple, then why is this chapter so lengthy? It's one of the lengthiest chapter, one of the most technical chapter in your GST. So if the story is this much, when I purchase, I pay GST, that is my current asset. When I sell, I collect GST from my customer, that is my current liability. I will deduct current asset from my current liability, and whatever balance is there, I will pay in cash. If this is it, this is 5 minutes chapter. Why am I discussing so in depth? Because government says, well, we will allow you to deduct this 58,000 rupees, but there are so many conditions that you need to follow. There are so many conditions you need to comply with, only then you can deduct this 58,000 rupees. Okay, so what are these conditions? The government said, all right, read the section. So first section what we are going to touch is section 16, one of the very important sections. So this section you need to remember in your mind. Whenever I say input tax credit, what is the section that has to come to your mind? That is section 16. So section 16 starts with the magical word. It says, every registered person shall. Okay. So what is the beginning word? They're talking about every registered person. This is important. Underline the word registered person. Why this is important is because the benefit of input tax credit is available only to the registered person, only to the registered persons. And if you are unregistered person, you cannot claim the benefit of input tax credit. Let us say I go to one shop and I purchase one chocolate. So my shopkeeper, being a registered person, will charge GST on me. Can I use that GST anywhere? Answer is no. Why not? Because I am not a registered person. I am an unregistered person. I cannot use that GST anywhere. So for me, entire amount becomes expense. There is nothing called as current asset for me. Anyways, let us not go in depth in that particular point. But remember this thing. Who can avail input tax credit? Only registered person can avail input tax credit. Can unregistered person avail input tax credit? Answer is no. Where it is told? Section 16. It starts with every registered person shall. So they are saying he can. It is not a choice for him. He can. Nobody can stop him. Nobody can stop him from taking input tax credit. But they're again saying subject to such conditions and restrictions. So this is the catch. You can avail input tax credit. We are not stopping you, but there is some conditions and some restrictions. So what is the difference between conditions and restrictions? Condition means if you follow that, you can still avail input tax credit. Restriction means on some item you don't have input tax credit at all. Though you pay tax, it is gone. We will study this. At a later part. You will get a very clear picture on this. Every registered person shall subject to such conditions and restrictions as may be prescribed. And in the manner specified in section 49. And in the manner which is specified in section 49. What does it even mean? We will understand at a later stage. So let us not worry about these words now. Section 49, prescribed and all, let us not worry about it. He shall be entitled to take credit of input tax. So they're talking about he can take input tax credit. He can take it as his current asset, charged on any supply of goods or service or both to him. Oh, this word is very important. To him. That means, let us say, I purchased a mobile phone. For my office use. Only for my office use. I purchased a mobile phone and I paid GST on that. Now, whether this GST is available to me as current asset, as input tax credit, answer is yes. Because I am the one who is purchasing that particular mobile phone. But let us say, my mother purchased the mobile phone for herself. Okay, my mother purchased the mobile phone, but I'll say, Mom, I will take input tax credit. You pay 10,000 rupees for mobile phone and 1,200 rupees as GST. I want to avail the benefit of that 1,200 rupees. The law says no, I cannot do that. Why? Because the GST, whatever is there, it is not my GST, it is my mother's GST. Okay. So when she purchased, it is a GST what is charged to her, which is not charged to me. So I can take credit of only those things which is charged to me, not to somebody else. Okay. How will department get to know whether I am purchasing the mobile phone, whether my mother is purchasing the mobile phone? All these things not the part of your inter syllabus. Maybe in your finals you will be able to study it in a better way. So again, coming back to the discussion, what and all we have studied, it is only registered person who can take the credit, and there are certain conditions and there are certain restrictions. And the GST should be charged to any supply which is actually made to him and no, not somebody else. Now this is very important, which are used or intended to be used in the course or furtherance of his business. So I need to purchase something which should be used in my business, only then I'll get the credit. For example, let us say that I have my office, and for that office, I am purchasing a chair. Okay. For the clients to come and sit, I purchased 5 chairs. And for these 5 chairs, for each chair, let us say I paid some 4,000 each. So how much for 5 chairs? Totally 20,000 rupees I paid. Along with that, I paid, let us say, 2,000 rupees as GST. I paid 2,000 rupees as GST. Now, first question I ask is whether this chair is purchased by the registered person. Answer is yes. I am the registered person and I have purchased this. Well, second question, whether this chair what I purchased, is it being used in my business? Is it being used in my business? Answer is yes. The chair is kept in my office. My clients come and sit in that chair and we will discuss all those things. So it is used in my business. Then I will get the input tax credit. But let us say I purchase one sofa. And this particular sofa set, I keep it at my home. So that after going back from the office, I can sleep there. So now, can I take the credit what is charged? Can I take the credit of the GST which is charged on that sofa? Answer is no. Why no? Because question, is it purchased by a registered person? Answer is yes. But is it used in my business? Answer is no. It is not used in my business. Then I'll not get the credit. Sir, what do you mean by the word intended to be used? So they are using one more word which is actually used or intended to be used. I'll give an example. Let's say that I purchased one inverter, okay, inverter for my office, so that whenever the power goes off, I can use this inverter. Now let us say one entire year, there was always power. There was no power cut at all. I never used, okay, I never used this inverter. But when I purchased that inverter, I paid some amount as GST. Will I get the input tax credit benefit of the same? Answer is yes. Why yes? Because actual usage is not necessary. Why did I purchase that inverter for? I purchased it to use it in my business. Just because power did not go off at all does not mean that I purchased it for my personal purpose. So as long as I'm purchasing it for my business purpose, whether I actually use it or whether I intend to use it in future, I will still get the credit. Okay. Then they will say, and the set amount, and it shall be created to electronic credit ledger. Well, you will not understand what it is at this stage. So from 16.1, what I want you to remember is every registered, it should be a registered person. Point number 1, there are certain conditions and restrictions. Point number 3 is he should be the one who is purchasing it. And the fourth one is it should be used in the course or furtherance of his business. All right. So these are the 4 points which I want you to remember. Okay. Now let us go to section 16, subsection 2. What does it say? It starts with magical word. Again, notwithstanding anything contained in this section. So this is the powerful section. What it says, I don't care what other section says. I don't care what other subsections in this section says. Okay. Notwithstanding anything contained in this section. So they are talking about some conditions and restrictions. What are they talking about? no registered person shall be entitled to take the credit. So no registered person. First in subsection 1, what they said registered person can take the credit. In subsection 2, they are saying registered person cannot take the credit. Wow. So they are just contradicting themselves. They are saying one section says you take the credit, one more section says you cannot take the credit. Why? Why? Because it continues. Let's read what it says. No registered person shall be entitled to take the credit of any input tax in respect of any supply of goods or services or both to him unless. So they are talking about some conditions. Okay. So we saw here that right here saw that, you know, there can be certain conditions. There can be certain conditions. So what are those conditions? So here they're talking about certain conditions. So what is the condition they are saying? Look at it. The first condition is he is in possession of tax invoice. He is in possession of a tax invoice or debit note issued by a supplier registered under this act or such other tax paying documents as may be prescribed. Simple word. Let us not get in deep. Simply, first point says, if I want to claim the input tax credit benefit, if I want to take the benefit of input tax credit, if I want to consider it as my current asset, then first thing what I need to have is I need to have invoice. I need to have invoice with me. Let us say that I purchased, okay, one more. Okay, let me show this. Let us say I purchased this hard disk. Okay, I purchased this, how much it is? I purchased this 4 TB hard disk by paying some 5,000 rupees. Along with that 5,000 rupees, I paid, let us say, 1,000 rupees as GST. I paid 1,000 rupees as GST. So total how much I paid? 5,000 plus 1,000, 6,000 I paid. Now the question is, can I claim that 1,000 rupees as input tax credit? Can I claim that 1,000 rupees as input tax credit? The law says I can claim. Subsection 1 says I can claim. Subsection 2 says what? First thing is I need to have tax invoice. I need to have tax invoice. Okay, so let us say, how does the tax invoice look like? Okay, let us say this is my tax invoice. This is not actually a tax invoice, but let us say this is the bill of purchasing that particular hard disk. Okay, so first condition is I need to have a tax invoice. Well, that is only one condition. Second condition is he has received the goods or service or both. So this is important. He should receive the goods or services. Only then I can claim input tax credit. Let us say that I place some online order for this particular hard disk, and this hard disk is still with my supplier. Okay, it is still with my supplier. It will come after, let us say this is because of this lockdown, this hard disk is going to come after 2 months. It is going to come after 2 months, but my supplier has sent me this invoice. He has sent me the bill, but the product has not reached to me. So this month, can I claim the credit? Can I claim the benefit of that 1,000 rupees? The law says no, because one condition you satisfied, but you did not satisfy the other condition. What is other condition? I do not have the goods with me. So only after I receive the goods. So let us say after 2 months I receive this. After 2 months I receive this. So after 2 months I can take the benefit, but not today. Clear? So I need to have tax invoice. I need to have the tax invoice. Also, I need to have the goods with me, or I should have received the goods with me, or I should have received the service. So these are the two conditions we studied. Okay. Then they are talking about where the goods are delivered and other things. Let us not go there. Let us A, B. Now let us go to one more thing. Let us go to C. I'll cover this particular point, that explanation, whatever is there, I'll come and cover it. Don't worry. But let us continue with the one more condition. What is the one more condition? Condition says subject to the provision, and read it, how complicated they make it. Subject to the provision of section 41, the tax charge in respect of such supply has been actually paid to the government either in cash or through utilization of input tax credit admissible in respect of the said supply. Sir, what did they say? I'll give it in very simple explanation to you so that you can understand it. Say I purchased this hard disk. Okay. Now in this situation, what and all happened? I have the invoice with me. I actually have the invoice with me. So condition 1 satisfied. What is the condition 2? Condition 2 is I should have received the goods. Let us say I received the goods. So condition 2 is satisfied. What is the condition 3? Condition 3 is the most craziest condition. What does it say? It says I purchased it. So I paid 5,000 rupees plus 1,000 rupees, total 6,000 rupees I paid. Now they are saying 1,000 rupees to whom did I pay? Did I pay to directly to the government? Answer is no. That is not how GST works. I paid it to whom? I paid it to my supplier. I paid it to my supplier. Now the question is whether my supplier paid it to government or not. So I gave this 1,000 rupees of GST to my seller. Now what my seller is expected to do? My seller is supposed to send this 1,000 rupees to government. He's supposed to do that. Now this says subsection, sorry, the clause C says only if he pays 1,000 rupees to government, I'll get the credit. Only if he pays it to the government, understand this, what are they even trying to say? Only if he pays it to the government of that 1,000 rupees, I'll get the credit. If he does not pay, let us say he kept that 1,000 rupees in his pocket and he just slept off, or he went for some foreign trip, he never came back, I will not get the credit. Sounds little, bizarre or very wrong, because how can I ask that person to pay GST? First of all, I have to pay my own tax. That is my headache. But anyways, I'll do it. How can I make my supplier to pay GST? See, my responsibility is to pay him. And what he does that with that money, I can't do anything. If he does not pay, what can I do? Can I go and knock his door and catch his collar and say, why don't you pay GST? Can I do that? I cannot do that. Correct? But again, this is what law says. And again, certain complications are there, but let us not discuss about it. Not very relevant. As of now, you need to understand this. Only if he pays 1,000 rupees to the government, I will get the credit. Okay. Next. He has furnished the return under section 39. So they are saying, I should file my returns. They're not talking about my supplier now. Supplier is done. They're talking about the fourth condition in which they are saying he has furnished the return under section 39. So I should file return. So what is this return, sir? See, in taxation, there are two things. One is paying the tax. Government wants money, so you need to pay the tax. There is one more thing. What is the next thing? That is, you need to give information to the government. You need to give information to the government. So government want money as well as information, not just money. So how do you give this information? You don't write letter to the government saying that, dear government, how are you doing? Are you fine? Even I am fine. All those things, you don't do that. So there is a format. There is a particular format in which you furnish information to the government. So this particular format in which you give the information is called as written. So in income tax, you have income tax return. In GST, you have GST return. So now we are not talking about income tax. So here they are saying he has furnished the return under section 39. So there is one return called as GSTR3, also called as GSTR3B, all those things you don't have to remember now. I will not confuse you with that. But they are saying I should file my return. And in that return, I need to say that, well, this is the GST which I paid it to my supplier. So I'm minusing this and I'm paying the balance amount of money to you. Only then I can claim input tax credit. So these are the four conditions. Okay, broadly, four conditions. What is the first condition? I should have the invoice with me. Second condition, I should have received goods or services. Third condition is what? My supplier should pay the tax to the government. Fourth condition. What is the fourth condition? That is, I should file my GST return. Simple, these four conditions. Okay. Now, I skipped this one particular part. I skipped it because I wanted to complete these four conditions. Then I'll come here, or else it will get way too lengthy that you may not remember what I'm trying to say. So what is this explanation? This explanation is pretty simple. They say I should actually receive the goods to claim the credit. I should actually receive the goods to claim the credit. Just read this particular thing. Just read this explanation and you will understand it. Just read it once. Okay. So did you go through this particular thing? So what are they saying? Where the goods are delivered by the supplier to a recipient or any other person on the direction of such registered person, whether acting as an agent or otherwise, before or during the moment of goods, either by way of transfer of documents of title to goods or otherwise. Okay. So simple thing, what they're trying to say. Let's take one example and we will understand this.
So they are saying, look, if you want to claim the input tax credit, you need to actually receive the goods. Okay. So for that particular rule, they're giving one exception. What is the exception? Exception is, let us say, so here I am a middle person. Okay. I am Mr. A. Okay. I am Mr. A. And I am a dealer in furnitures. Okay. I am dealer in furnitures. And I got order from, let us say, Mr. B. I got order from Mr. B that he wants 100 chair from me. How much? How many chairs? 100 chairs. So this is Mr. B. I want 100 chairs. I want 100 chairs. I said, all right, not a problem, but I don't have 100 chairs with me. Okay, mine is a very small shop. I don't have 100 chairs. So what do I do? Instead of saying no to Mr. B, what will I do is I'll contact somebody called as Mr. X. Mr. X, who is a wholesaler. Who is a wholesaler. So what will I tell Mr. X? I will say, okay, I'll call him and I'll say, see, I will say, wait, I'll write it in the black ink. Send 100 chairs to Mr. B. Send 100 chairs to Mr. B and give bill to me Okay, so what is Mr. X going to do? Mr. X is going to send the goods to Mr. B. He is going to send the goods to Mr. B and he is going to give one invoice to me. So I'll call it as invoice 1. This is invoice 1. This invoice 1 is given by whom to whom? Mr. X is giving invoice to me for that 100 chairs. Okay, maybe X is going to charge 1000 rupees per chair. He's going to charge how much? 1000 rupees per chair. Now what will I do? I am going to give invoice. To Mr. B and I may charge 1200 per chair. Per chair. This is excluding GST. Even this 1000 rupees is excluding GST. So this is, I'm going to call it as invoice 2. Now, who is issuing invoice 1? That is Mr. X is issuing invoice 1. Who is issuing invoice 2? Mr. A, that is I am issuing invoice 2 to my customer. Now, how should the taxation happen? Let us assume GST is at the rate of 10%. Now, so there are two things which is happening. Let me just erase this. Okay. So in my books, there is a purchase and then there is sale. Okay, purchase of how many chairs? I have purchased 100 chair by paying 1000 rupees. So how much it is? 1 lakh, on which I have paid GST of how much? 10%. No, it is 10,000. So is there something GST at 10%? No, but why not? Mathematical simplicity. So how much I paid totally? 1,10,000 rupees. So what is my sale? My sale, it is 100 into 1200 per chair, that is 1,20,000 rupees. On that GST of how much? 12,000 rupees. So how much did I collect from my customer? 1,32,000 rupees. Now the question is, I have to pay how much to government? I have collected how much from my customer? I have collected this 12,000 from my customer. But while paying it to the government, I will deduct this 10,000 rupees. I'll deduct this 10,000 rupees and I will just give 2,000 rupees in cash. But for me to deduct this 10,000 rupees, I need to fulfill conditions of section 16. What is the condition? Condition number 1, I should have the invoice with me. Do I have the invoice with me? Answer is yes. So look at this particular thing. Where did it go? It went here. So here I have invoice 1. So I have the invoice with me. What is the condition number 2? Condition number 2 is I should have received the goods. Tell me, did I receive the goods? I did not receive the goods at all. What happened? Mr. X directly sent the goods to Mr. B. So I did not receive the goods. So am I fulfilling the condition? I am not fulfilling the condition. If I don't fulfill the condition, can I deduct this 10,000 rupees? Can I claim input tax credit? Law says no. I cannot do that. That is where, to help me solve this particular problem, they introduce that explanation. Now read the explanation. Or before we read the explanation, what are they saying is, if I am making Mr. X to send goods directly to Mr. B, then it is assumed that it is deemed that I have received the goods. Actually, did I receive the goods? Answer is no. In actual, I have not received the goods. I have not received the goods. But it is assumed that I have received the goods. So it is because of that, the second conditions gets fulfilled. So now can I claim the credit? Answer is yes. Why yes? Because I have the invoice with me. It is assumed that I received the goods and he has paid the GST. Let us assume that he has paid the GST. And the fourth condition is I will file my GST return. I can claim the goods. So same thing with service as well. So I am the middle person. I am making somebody to give directly service to somebody else. So I'm not actually receiving the service, but it is assumed that I received the service. So how service is possible? Goods we understand, but service, how it is? Let's simply take an example. Say in the same setup, it is Mr. B is asking me to supply some food items. Okay, some catering service. Mr. B is getting married. So Mr. B has asked me to supply 10 food items, and out of which I only prepare 8 food items. I prepare only 8 food items. So what will I say? I'll say, Mr. X, you prepare those 2 food items and give it to Mr. B and bill it to me. So here food is not goods, food is service. So did I actually receive those 2 food items? Answer is no. It is Mr. B who received the food items, but still it is assumed that I received that service. So hence I can claim the credit. Very simple thing. Now if you go back and read it, it is very, very simple for you to understand. What are they saying? Let us read. Where the goods are delivered by the supplier to a recipient or any other persons on the direction of such registered person. So who is giving the direction? Mr. A is directing Mr. X to deliver it to Mr. B. Whether he is acting as an agent or principal, doesn't matter, whoever it is, then it is assumed that I have received the goods. Okay, it is assumed that I have received the, where it is written here. For the purpose of this clause, it shall be deemed that registered person has received the goods. So it is a deeming provision. It is a assuming provision. Okay, I'll not drag it further. This is it. If you understand this much, more than enough. Next. So 4 conditions that we have studied. Now this is one important thing. Provided that, okay, this is the provision. What is the provision they are saying? Condition did not end here. Condition continues. What is a continued condition? They say, provided that where the goods against an invoice are received in lots or installments. So they are talking about when you receive the goods in lots or in installments, the registered person shall be entitled to take the credit upon the receipt of the last lot or installment. Okay. So what are they saying? Before I explain what are they saying, again, I want you to remember what we studied in invoice chapter. When goods are sent on installments or lots, you are supposed to give the original invoice along with your last consignment. So that is somewhere related here, but let me give it in a very simple example. Let's not complicate it. Why so much of complication? Let's simplify this. Say that, okay, this is the page. Okay. Say this is April and this is May. Okay. I ordered for 10,000 kg of plastic. I am again the Tupperware guy. I ordered for 10,000 kg of plastic. Now let us assume that 10,000 kg of plastic does not fit in one lorry. Imagine, it does not fit in one particular truck. So my supplier is sending it in 4 different trucks. Okay, truck 1, truck 2, truck 3. And the 4th truck comes in May. And the 4th truck comes in May. Now let us say my supplier is charging me 10,000 rupees as GST. He is charging me 10,000 rupees as GST. So I have received goods worth rupees 2,500, 2,500, 2,500. So up to 7,005 rupees GST goods I have received here. Okay. And remaining 2,500 worth GST goods I'm receiving in the next month. So the question is, when do I claim this benefit of input tax credit? can I claim 7,500 in this month and 2,500 in the next month? Because here what has happened, look, do I have the invoice? Answer is yes. Do I have the invoice? Answer is yes. Have I received the goods? Answer is yes. Supplier has paid the tax? Answer is yes. I have filed the return? Answer is yes. But one more condition. What is the condition? Whether these goods are received in installments or lots? Answer is yes. Now, have you received all the installments in the month of April only? Have you received all the lot in the month of April? Answer is no. So I have received when? I have received in May. So I cannot say 7,500 this month, 2,500 next month. Entire 10,000 rupees I can claim only in the month of May. Why are they this much complicating it? Because they can, because they are government. All right. So what is the point I want to tell you? That if you're receiving goods in lots, you can claim credit only after you receive all the lots. All the lots. Okay. Next. Now, if this much complication was not enough, there is one more super complicated provision. Now, what are they saying? Read it. So they are saying, provided further that where a recipient fails to pay to the supplier of goods or service or both, other than the supplies on which tax is payable on reverse charge basis, the amount towards the value of supply along with the tax payable thereon within a period of 180 days from the date of issue of invoice by the supplier, an amount equal to the input tax credit availed by the recipient shall be added to his output tax liability along with interest thereon in such manner as may be prescribed. Sir, what is this line even mean? I'll tell you. It's very simple. This particular provision was not there in any law as far as indirect taxations are concerned, as far as service tax was concerned, as far as excise was concerned. This particular provision was not there. So here what they are trying to say, I'll tell you, listen. Say I am registered person, I am Mr. A. Okay, I purchased plastics. I purchased plastic to manufacture tiffin boxes from whom? Mr. X. Okay, so Mr. X, let us draw him in red color. Okay, this is Mr. X. I purchased plastic from him. So Mr. X told, when he's saying, selling, giving the plastic to me, look, you need to pay 1 lakh rupees plus 12,000 rupees as GST. So this is the value of plastic is 1 lakh and 12,000 rupees as GST. So total is how much? 1 lakh 12,000 rupees. I told Mr. X, all right, not a problem. I'll pay you. Just now I don't have money. I don't have money with me. But I will manufacture tiffins, and once I will start selling it to my customers, then I'll collect money from my customers, then I'll pay it to you. Mr. X says, no problem, no problem. You take as much as time you want. I said, okay. So when I purchased it, can I avail input tax rate on this 12,000 rupees? The law said 4 conditions you fulfill, you can claim the credit. What is the 4 condition? Again, I'm repeating so that it fits in your brain. First condition is I have the invoice with me. Answer is yes, I have the invoice with me. Second condition, I should have received the goods. Yes, I have received the goods. Third condition is supplier should pay to the government. Supplier should pay tax. So this 12,000 whatever is there, though I have not paid it to Mr. X, Mr. X paid from his pocket. He paid from his pocket to the government. He has money, he is supplier, he is a big person. So he did that. All right. Fourth condition is Mr. A should file the return. Okay, that is I should file the, okay, where did it go? Okay, I should file the return. So I have filed the returns. Answer is yes. So I have filed my returns. These 4 conditions were satisfied. So I should have availed the credit of 12,000 rupees. Okay. Now what is the invoice date? Let us say invoice date is 1st of April 2020. 1st of April 2020. Okay. Now government is saying, look, you made the credit purchase and Mr. X paid from his pocket. He paid from his pocket. Now we are giving you 180 days of time. We are giving you, who is telling this to me? This government is telling, okay? This government is telling to me, government is saying to me, you need to you need to make the payment within 180 days from the date of invoice. That is from 1st of April 2020. Within 180 days, you need to make the payment. What is it? Only 1 lakh rupees? Answer is no. Is it only 12,000 rupees? Answer is no. It is both 1,12,000 rupees I need to pay to Mr. X. I'll say, what happens? What will you do? I'll not pay. It is between me and Mr. X. Who are you to interfere? Oh, you know, in foundation we have studied privity to contract. Somebody else can't come and interfere, but government says I can interfere. I will interfere. So government is saying, look, if you don't pay within 180 days, if you don't pay within 180 days, whatever the credit what you have availed, we will cancel it. We will cancel it. So they use the word reverse. They'll use the word reverse, and you need to pay that money. You need to pay that money to the government. So 180 days from 1st of April means when it will come. Let us say 30 days in April, 31 days in May, June, July, and August. Okay, how many days? Let's not go in depth. Let's simply take 6 months, and let us assume that 180 days becomes on 1st of October. Okay, 1st of October 2020. This 180 days will lapse. So if I don't make the payment within 1st of October 2020, then I have to pay from my pocket 12,000 rupees to government, not just 12,000 rupees interest for this 180 days. Okay, I don't know why government wants to do all these things, but this is what the provision says. So what is the provision says? Simple. You make the purchase, but if you don't make the payment of both 1 lakh plus 12,000 rupees, then you will not get the benefit of input tax credit. You need to reverse. You need to give back the benefit whatever you have claimed along with the interest thereon. Then comes, most of the students, the moment I say this, sir, what if I have not paid 1,12,000 rupees, but what if I have paid 56,000 rupees? That is 50 percentage. The law says, okay, if you pay half, you claim half benefit. So instead of 12,000, you pay only 6,000 rupees back. 6,000 rupees you can keep because you paid 6,000 rupees. No. What if student says that I paid 12,000 rupees to him? I paid only 12,000 rupees to him as tax, but I did not pay 1 lakh rupees. So what will happen then? So government says, no. You have to pay both towards value and towards GST. Only then you can claim the benefit. If you just pay tax, you can still not claim the benefit. Examination point, not very relevant this particular point. This is just for the understanding purpose. So what does that particular item say? It says, even if I'm making a credit purchase within 180 days, I need to make payment to my supplier. If I don't do that, I cannot claim the input tax credit. I have to reverse. Let us say after 250 days, I make the payment. At that time, I can claim the credit again. I can claim the benefit again. Let's not go there. When we are doing sums, maybe if we come across such sums, we will discuss, or else this much discussion is more than enough. Okay, so we have studied this thing. So what does this particular provision says? You read this. It says within 180 days, I need to make the payment. But they're saying as far as RCM is concerned, whenever this reverse charge is concerned, I don't have to make this payment. Why not? Because reverse charge, who is paying the tax? It is not my supplier who is paying the tax. It is I myself who is paying the tax. So they don't care whether I pay to my supplier or not, because it is I am the one who is paying the tax. So other than reverse charge cases, if I want to claim input tax credit, I need to make payment within 180 days. And again, they are saying, this is the one. What are they saying? That if I make payment, let us say after 250 days, first after 180 days, I will cancel it. Then after 250 days, again, I will reclaim it. Okay. Now, one more condition they are saying, where the registered person has claimed depreciation on the tax component of the cost of capital goods and plant and machinery under the provisions of Income Tax Act, the ITC on said tax component shall not be allowed. Sir, what are they saying? I know. I'll give an example. Simple. Say I purchased machinery worth rupees 10 lakhs. So what is the value of the machinery? 10 lakhs. Let us say I paid GST of 2 lakh rupees. I paid GST of 2 lakh rupees. So how should I pass the journal entry? I should pass the journal entry as, now you should tell me machinery account debited. 2, let us say I paid in cash, 2 cash. Cash, how much I'm paying? I'm paying 12 lakh rupees. But how much should I debit? How much should I debit? Should I debit entire 12 lakh rupees? Answer is no. I should debit only 10 lakh rupees. Sir, debit is 10 lakh rupees, credit is 12 lakh rupees. This does not tally. Yes. So this 2 lakh rupees is nothing but GST paid. This is GST paid on purchase of asset. So also called as input tax credit. Okay, I need to pass journal entry like this. So if I pass journal entry like this, how much is my machinery debited? My machinery is debited by 10 lakh rupees. So whenever I'm charging depreciation, on what value I'll charge depreciation? On only this 10 lakh rupees. So this is what I'm supposed to do. But if I don't do this, and instead I pass the entry called as machinery account debited to cash 12 lakh, 12 lakh. So what I've done, I have capitalized even that 2 lakh rupees also, which I should not have done. I should have kept it as current asset. So if I do this, if I pass entry like this, I will not get the ITC benefit. So if I pass this entry, there is no ITC. There is no ITC. Here I'll get ITC. This is where science students will find little difficult, because first thing is they need to understand what journal entry is. Then they need to understand what is revenue, what is capital, all those things. But you will understand it in a better way. So what is whenever I purchase asset, I should pass journal entry like this. If I don't pass journal entry like this, I'll not get the credit. So next, fourth condition, the subsection 4. A registered person shall not be entitled to take input tax credit in respect of any invoice or debit note for supply of goods or service or both after the due date of furnishing of return under section 39 of the month of September following the end of financial year to which such invoice debit note pertains. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. Simple point. So they are talking about time limit. Time limit in the sense, okay, let us say this is my timeline. See, I'll give you a very simple example. Let us say, you go to one hotel and you make the bill of some 1000 rupees, and the hotel owner is very happy and he gives you some voucher, he gives you some coupon, and he says, you come back with your family and you show this coupon and we will give you 200 rupees as discount. Now, does it mean that you can come after 10 years and give that coupon to him and say that, give us 200 rupees off? Answer is no. There has to be some time limit. So what is the time limit? Time limit will be written in that coupon only, that, this particular coupon has to be redeemed within these many days. Maybe, is valid only for next 30 days or next 1 year and like that. So same way in GST also they are telling that whenever you purchase, you can claim input tax credit. But that does not mean that you can claim whenever you want. There is a time limit. What is the time limit? They're saying, this is April and this is March. Okay, let us say this is 2019 April and 2020 March. This is one financial year. Now let us say I make purchase anytime between this April to March. When can I claim the credit? Claiming the credit I can do anytime. Here anytime I can claim the credit, plus they'll give me time till September. They'll give me time till September. I can claim the credit. So question is, if I make purchase in, let us say in the month of June, I made the purchase in the month of June. Can I claim the benefit in this March? Answer is yes. Can I claim somewhere here in August? Answer is yes. Can I claim somewhere here the next year's, let us say July? Answer again is yes. But can I claim the benefit in next year's February? Answer is no. Why no? Because the time limit was up to next year's September. So if I made some purchase in April, I'll get time from this April to this September to claim the credit. But if I make purchase in March, I'll get benefit from here to here. Okay. Now, if I make the purchase in April, what happens? Then it is not from here to here. It is not that way. It is from this April to the next year September. Okay. It is next year September, not the same September. One more thing. So one timeline we studied, what is September. Next, there is one more restriction. So first restriction is September or date of filing of annual return. Date of filing of annual return, whichever is earlier. What does it even mean? Let me tell you. So I said the government wants two things. One is money and one is information. Now this information, normally you give monthly information. This month I made sale, this month I made sale of this much, all these things. Then government says, okay, monthly sale is done. Just like, you may have your monthly test. Along with that, you have your annual test. Same way government says monthly return you give. Along with that, once in a year, give annual return, annual information. So there is something called as annual return. So what is the due date to file annual return? They say due date to file annual return is, let us say this is April and this is March of 1920. So if you do any business in 1920, this is the entire year's business. The information about this 1920 you are supposed to give to government. So government has given time till next year's December. So that is up to December 20 you are supposed to give the information. Okay. So by December 20 you are supposed to give information. Can you give earlier than that? Definitely yes. So if you want to give some information in the month of, let us say, June, is it possible? Yes. July possible? Yes. November possible? Answer again is yes. Okay. June also you can give information. November also give information. December also you give information. Can you give information in February? You are not supposed to give, because you're supposed to give by December only. Okay. So now, so there are two dates. One is September month or date of filing annual return, whichever is earlier. So I'll explain you with one more example. Okay. Very simple example. Let us take. This is the timeline. Let us say this is April 2019 and let us say this is March 2020. Okay. Now here what I've done is, so there is this one timeline. I'm going to draw it in red line. This is September. This is September. So I have understood that I cannot claim the credit after September. I cannot claim the credit after September. But there is one more restriction, that is annual return. So there are two possibilities. I could have filed the return, annual return, in July. This is one possibility. And there is one more possibility. I could have filed the return in November. So let us say I made some purchase. I made some purchase here. Some April 2019, I made some purchase and I paid 5,000 rupees as GST. So by when should I claim this benefit? By when should I claim benefit? Anytime in 1920, I can claim the benefit, and before September month return, I should have claimed that benefit. Okay, so this is the one period. This is the one period, and which is the second period? Let us say I have filed the annual return in July. I have filed the annual return in July. So I see these two dates, September or July, whichever is earlier. Which is earlier? July is earlier. So by when should I have actually claimed it? I should have claimed it in, I should have claimed before July. July or September, whichever is earlier. Which is earlier? July is earlier. So let us say instead of filing it in July, what I have done is I have filed it in November. I filed it in November. So I see two dates. Which are the ones? September or November, whichever is earlier. That is September. That is September. So I should have claimed the benefit by which month? September. So after September, can I claim? Answer is no. If I file the annual return somewhere in the month of July, after July, can I claim this 5,000 benefit? Answer is no. This is one condition. But there are certain things what we will learn later. What you see in the act is not what is real. So this is the first part of your input tax credit chapter. So for examination, what are the things that you're supposed to remember? In examination, they'll not ask you the law part. They'll ask you whether you have followed certain conditions. And if you have followed that conditions, you will get the credit. What are the conditions? Quickly, before we close today's class. 4 conditions. First one is you should have the tax invoice. Second condition is you should have received the goods. Third condition is supplier should pay the tax. Fourth condition is I should file the return. Next one is if I'm receiving the goods in lots, I can claim the credit only after I receive the last lot. Next condition, I should be a registered person and I should use the goods, or I should have intention to use it in the course of my business. What is the next condition? If it is a capital asset, I should not capitalize the tax portion. I should separately treat it as 10 lakh plus 2 lakh, then I should need to pass a journal entry. I should not do entire 12 lakh rupees as debit. That is the thing what we studied with the practical example. Then the last one is time limit. Time limit, keep in your mind, simple thing. There is a time limit to claim the credit. I cannot claim wherever I want. So what is this time limit? So time limit is, they are saying entire year you can claim. The year of purchase you can definitely claim. Next year up to September you can claim. But if you have filed annual return even before September, then September is not applicable. What is the date of filing annual return? That is applicable to you. Very simple point. That's it. So this is for today. Let us resume tomorrow. All right. And if you have some questions, you can ask.